A single phone call. A panicked voice. And then, nothing. On a quiet spring night in 2008, a 19-year-old college student named Brandon Swanson drove into the darkness of rural Minnesota and vanished without a trace. What followed was one of the most haunting disappearances in modern American history. No signs of struggle. No footprints. No body. Just a desperate voice saying, "Oh," before the line went dead. This is the story of Brandon Swanson, and the case that still chills even the most hardened investigators. Welcome to Captain Justice True Stories. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because justice is coming. Brandon Swanson was born on January 30th, 1989. Raised in the small town of Marshall, Minnesota, Brandon was a typical Midwestern kid, polite, bright, and independent. At 19, he was attending the Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby, studying wind turbine technology. He had dreams, practical ones. He wasn't looking for fame or fortune, just a solid career and a good life. On May 13, 2008, Brandon had just finished his final exams and decided to celebrate with friends in Canby. Nothing unusual. A few drinks, some laughter, and a night to mark the end of the semester. He promised to be careful. He didn't make it home. Around 10:30 p.m., Brandon left one party to visit another. He wasn't visibly intoxicated. Friends said he seemed relaxed, clear-headed. At some point after midnight, he got back in his car, a green Chevy Lumina, and began the 30-mile drive back to Marshall. It was a drive he had made many times before. At 1:54 a.m., Brandon called his parents, Brian and Annette Swanson. His voice was calm but frustrated. He said he had driven his car into a ditch and couldn't get it out. But here's where things begin to unravel. He told his parents he was near the town of Lind, a small farming community southwest of Marshall. They drove out to find him, but as they approached the area he described, there was no sign of him or his car. They flashed their headlights. They shouted into the night. Brandon said he could see their lights. But they couldn't see his. They were close. Or so they thought. After about 45 minutes of searching and talking on the phone, Brandon said he was going to start walking toward Lind, a town with only a few hundred people and limited lighting. The phone call continued. For nearly 47 minutes, Brandon stayed on the line with his father, calmly talking as he walked through the dark countryside. He described passing fences, gravel roads, and even hearing rushing water. And then, at 2:30 a.m., his last words. "Oh, message." And the call went silent. The Swansons immediately called police. But like so many families of missing young adults, they were met with initial skepticism. Brandon, after all, was 19. Legally an adult. Maybe he just didn't want to be found. But his parents knew better. This wasn't like him. He had stayed on the phone for nearly an hour, confused, maybe scared, but not irrational. Something had happened. By 6:30 a.m., law enforcement took the report seriously. At 12:30 p.m. that same day, Brandon's Chevy Lumina was found, but not near Lind. It was abandoned on the edge of a gravel road, near Taunton, nearly 25 miles northwest of where Brandon said he was. He had been wrong. Tragically wrong. The discovery of the car launched a massive search effort. Hundreds of volunteers, K-9 units, helicopters, and ground teams scoured the vast farmland around Taunton. It's not dense forest. It's flat, open land with ditches, fields, and farmhouses separated by miles of silence. Search dogs traced Brandon's scent from the car to the edge of a field, then along the Yellow Medicine River. Then the trail stopped. No more scent. No clothing. No phone. No Brandon. Authorities searched a 122-square-mile area, dragging the river multiple times. Nothing. It was as if Brandon had been swallowed whole by the earth. Let's rewind the timeline. How did Brandon think he was near Lind when he was actually miles away? Investigators later theorized that he had taken a wrong turn after leaving the party. He may have driven west instead of south, eventually ending up in Lincoln County rather than Lyon County. He thought he was near Lind, but in reality he was near Taunton. This explains why his parents couldn't find him. They were looking in the wrong place. But it doesn't explain what happened after that final phone call. Or where he went. Or why Despite exhaustive searches, not even a shoe, a shred of clothing, or a phone has ever been recovered. As with every true crime mystery, theories abound. Theory 1. Accidental drowning. The most commonly accepted theory is that Brandon, walking in darkness and possibly injured or intoxicated, fell into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. But the river was searched extensively, multiple times, with no body ever found. Theory 2. Hypothermia and exposure. May nights in Minnesota can be cold. If Brandon became disoriented, he may have succumbed to the elements. But again, where is the body? Searchers covered every field, ditch, and drainage pipe for miles. Theory 3. Animal attack. Unlikely. No signs of blood or struggle. And scavenger animals do not erase every trace of a person. Theory 4. Foul play. The dark road. A vulnerable walker. A passerby with bad intentions. Could someone have picked him up or harmed him? But if that's true, how did it happen within seconds of saying, "Oh, SH," on the phone? Wouldn't there be more signs? Despite modern tech, Brandon's cell phone has never been located. Ping data was used to approximate his location, but rural towers are imprecise. No GPS, no app tracking, just a faint signal, lost in the middle of farmland. In 2008, smartphone technology wasn't widespread. There was no Find My iPhone, no real-time map tracking, no SOS alerts. He was alone in the dark. In more ways than one, Brian and Annette Swanson have never stopped searching. In interviews, they speak with poise, but also with unimaginable pain. They've organized searches, advocated for legislation, and pushed for awareness of how law enforcement responds to adult disappearances. Their work helped pass Brandon's Law in Minnesota, a law that requires authorities to begin an investigation immediately when an adult is reported missing under suspicious circumstances. No more waiting. No more, they're probably just blowing off steam. Brandon's Law made sure other families wouldn't face the same delay. But for the Swansons, it hasn't brought closure. Only questions. In 2015, 7 years after Brandon vanished, law enforcement launched yet another search of the Yellow Medicine River, this time with advanced sonar. And again, nothing. In 2020, cadaver dogs signaled in the same general area, near Porter, Minnesota. That glimmer of hope sparked a new wave of public interest. But once again, no body, no clues, no Brandon. And the land? It remains unchanged. Windy, empty, quiet. Like the voice of someone who walked into darkness and never walked back out. Brandon's case has inspired forums, Reddit threads, podcast episodes, and amateur investigations. But more than that, it has become a symbol of how fragile the line is between safety and disappearance. One wrong turn, one dark road, one moment, and everything changes. To this day, Brandon's parents leave their porch light on every night hoping. They believe, or perhaps need to believe, that someone, somewhere, knows what happened. And they're right. Someone does. If you know anything about the disappearance of Brandon Swanson, even the smallest detail, call the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office at 507-694-1664. Because stories like these don't go cold. They just wait for someone to speak. This has been Captain Justice True Stories. Subscribe now for more chilling cases, cold leads, and haunting questions. Turn on the bell and help us shine a light on the dark. Because justice is coming.